Alright, hello everyone. This is the much anticipated video of how I made it to Cebu. So first we're just going to show you that this is definitely Cebu. Hopefully you guys can see this out here. There are people on motorbikes. There's a little sorry on the corner over there. And there's tons of wires coming off of the street signs. Let's open up the window. So you can see that we're definitely in the Philippines right now. So with that being said, and being proven, we're going to talk a little bit about the documents of how to get here. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning. So my name is Colin Schneidy, and I am married to a Filipina. Her name is Riva Clarice, and she lives in the island of Bohol. We got married on April 16th of 2021. We started dating on March 22nd, 21st technically in America. And it was literally the same day that the Philippines closed down and prevented any further immigration. So from the moment that we started dating, we were unable to meet each other in person. And eventually, I stumbled upon an article that said, man from Kentucky gets married online and goes to see his wife. And I thought, that just can't be right. And the more I looked into it, the crazier it sounded and the more legitimate it happened to be. And so I found this place called WebWed. And this is the website for WebWed. Probably can't see it too well. It's got, that interracial couple sitting right on the front screen right there. It's webwedmobile.com. WebWed Mobile was the first process I went through. WebWed charges, like $899 for an international marriage. And yes, it is a lot. So an international marriage license, they charge $899 to marry you and your loved one online, and you get to set your ceremony date, you get to have all your friends and family come. For me and my wife, we had a lovely ceremony. We had 25 people in attendance, including us and the person officiating the wedding. We had cake and desserts on both sides, a delicious cheesecake, lots of party favor food. It was a wonderful experience. That being said, it's not a very difficult process. Once you pay them for their services for the $899, they send you over the links to follow with the Utah County website. And the Utah County website gives you, the only part that becomes a little confusing is when it asks about where she lives, because obviously she doesn't live in the United States. So in this part, you just tell WebWed that it needs to be modified manually, and they put her information in there. So you'll have to zero out things like the social security number. You'll have to leave blank or type something that doesn't matter into the place where her information goes for her place of residence, because that's going to be manually modified by the WebWed staff. You have to ask them to do that. They will do that. It only takes them another day or so to turn that around, and then you have your happy ceremony and you get started in this wonderful process, which is an online marriage. Now, to go back to the beginning for a moment, my wife and I have never met in person. So I have not met my wife in person in the Philippines or in America or anywhere else in the world to this point. I am currently in Cebu at my quarantine hotel, waiting for the 10-day period to be able to go and visit her on her island, which is the island of Bohol. So, we're going back to the WebWed process, once you complete the marriage ceremony, after about a week, you get your marriage license. And your marriage license looks a little something like this. And it's got your statements on the front that explain that how it was officiated. It shows your name, her name. For my certificate specifically, it says Riva Clarice Casas Tagun of Bohol in the county of blank and the state of blank. It gives her age, and then of course it gives my county and state, which is Phoenix, Arizona. So in this, it explains this is an official certificate of marriage. It's signed by WebWed staff. It's signed by the county clerk on the back. And then you can either pay WebWed another $425 for this document on top, which is called an apostille, or you can go to the Secretary of State website yourself and Google it and find some information on how to send your marriage certificate into them and ask for it to be apostilled. I went through WebWed myself and I paid top dollar for this just because they know this process in and out. But I have gotten apostilles of other documents through the state before, and going through the state is a very cheap process. So if you want to go through the state, you can do it. This, for an example, is an apostille document through the state of Arizona. This is something completely unrelated to this entire process. It is my apostilled student transcripts for school. So how did I do this? All I did was I had it notarized that this is a certified and true copy of a document from Arizona. This was from a school in Arizona, Grand Canyon University. And then I sent the documents in with a form to the Secretary of State office, and after 10 days they turned it around, and bada bing bang boom, I got an apostille from the state of Arizona. You can do it that way if you want to save some cash. You're just going to have to do the legwork to figure out how that process works yourself, because I did not do the state of Utah apostille. However, I will say this, that going through any of these processes, whenever you're sending documents, send them overnight. If you want your documents processed quickly, you're gonna have to pay the cash to have them processed overnight, sent over to the business that you want them to be sent to, and you're going to have to pay for a return sauce for overnight. So you can get a return envelope that has overnight shipping on it through UPS, and it will be sent back to you overnight as soon as the business, such as the Secretary of State, is done processing your document. So that is going to be going forward, all of these processes, the ROM, visa processing, you're going to want to do overnight sending and return overnight sauces. And by the way, a sauce is a self-addressed stamped envelope, which is where you mail something that is addressed to yourself from yourself. And that's something that you're going to have to include in the processing for both the report of marriage and for the visa. So, let's open up the report of marriage. So once I had this lovely document, which is the apostille, and by the way, the apostille took another week or two to process. This was certified the 21st day of April, and again, I got married on the 16th day of April. So it took between the 16th and the 21st to receive my marriage certificate from WebWed, and then send it, and then for them to send their copy to the state of Utah, have it apostilled, and then sent to me. So I received this a few days after the 22nd of April when they sent it back to me. So let's go to the Civil Registry, San Francisco Consulate. So this is where a lot of questions start coming up. Yes, you must do a report of marriage. You will not get a visa if you do not have a report of marriage. So I'm sorry, if you're not married, you are not getting into the Philippines at this time. You must have a report of marriage. It must be a legally recognized marriage by the Filipino government, not just by the United States. Just having an apostille does not mean that you have a marriage that is recognized by the Philippine government. An apostille will be recognized because the Hague International Treaty, the Philippines became a party to it in 2019, but that doesn't mean that you are automatically recognized. You must register your marriage in the San Francisco Consulate because all of the marriage certificates from WebWed seem to come out of Utah. So therefore, if your marriage certificate is from Utah through WebWed, you will register your apostille marriage certificate through the San Francisco Consulate, and you can look up what states are controlled by what consulates on the Consulate General's website if for some reason you're married in a different state or through a different online process. So let's go over the requirements for the report of marriage. So the first thing that you need is you need a cover letter. One cover letter indicating your request to report a marriage with your contact information. Now this is a really simple document. This is literally you typing up a Word document that says, "Hi, my name is," I got married. This is the person that I got married to. I would like you to please accept this apostille marriage certificate for the reporting of my marriage. Here's my telephone number. Here's my email address. Here's my permanent contact address. Signed, your name. Very simple document. It is not hard for you to get. You don't even have to notarize this. However, if you want to notarize it, you can notarize it just to be safe. The second one is the five original duly accomplished report of marriage forms. So, this right here is my report of marriage form. Out of the 5 that I had to have notarized, I got to keep 2 of them. There's a reason they have you do 5. On this form, we're going to go through it piece by piece. I had to put my last name, her last name, our first names, our middle names, our date of birth, our place of birth. For me, this was in Pennsylvania. For her, this was in Bohol. Our civil status, I was divorced before I got married. She was single. Citizenship, I'm USA, she's Philippines. Naturalized, neither of us is naturalized, so NA. Religion, if you have a religion, then put your religion down. You're going to put your date of marriage. So the date on the certificate. One moment, my love is messaging me. Alright, so you're going to put the date of marriage, which for us was on the 16th of April, 2021. When it comes to the apostille and the web-wed, in here it shows that the marriage is certified through Lehigh, Utah. So if you go through the exact same places I did, which is through web-wed in Utah, you're going to put Lehigh, Utah, United States. And then your 2 witnesses, because web-wed will have you choose 2 witnesses for your ceremony. Their names will be written on the marriage license. So for me and my wife, our 2 witnesses was my mom and her mom. And so those 2 witnesses are written down on the report of marriage at box number 12, my mom, her mom. Obviously, names withheld. Same thing for the officiating solemnizing authority. The officiating solemnizing authority is from the report of marriage. That is the printed name or signed name of the officiant. So that's who you're going to put in that box. You're going to put his title, which in this case he should be a county clerk designee. On the marriage certificate here, the officiant title says county clerk designee, so that's what was put. And then, I gave my father's full name, her father's full name, her, what their citizenships are, my mom's full name, her mom's full name, what their citizenships are. Now here's where a lot of people have questions, is box number 20. How do both me and my wife sign this block since we are both in different countries and we have to have it notarized? And that is a great question. And the San Francisco consulate reached out to me and gave me guidance on this when I asked them. They said that first, you're going to have your wife sign and notarize. And she's going to sign and notarize each of the 5 copies. So she signed physically this copy, she signed physically this copy, and she signed 3 other copies physically in the presence of a Philippine notary who then notarized all 5 copies. Then, again, we're doing everything overnight, send everything overnight. She sent those documents to me at the quickest that they were possible to me at my address, and then I signed on the other side, right here, and I had a notary stamp right here under that where I had it notarized on all 5 documents. This is the way to do it. She notarizes it, you notarize it, and then you send it in with the rest of your package. So, report of marriage form, you create 5 copies of this. 5 copies of the report of marriage. She signs physically. It must be physical. You cannot do a digital notary. I tried to do the digital notary. They would not accept the digital notary. Don't waste your money. It is hundreds of dollars that we wasted. She signs, it's notarized in the Philippines. You sign, it's notarized in the United States. You send all 5 copies with all signatures and all notarizations on them on the report of marriage, all 5 forms, to the consulate. So that is number 1, or number 2, excuse me. All right, so Number 3 on the consulate website. And you can find these requirements on at pcgsanfrancisco.com/civil-registry. So you shouldn't have to worry about the affidavit of delayed registration of marriage unless you did not register your marriage for an entire year after you got married, which is probably not going to apply to any of you guys getting married online. The 5 photocopies of the marriage certificate, 5 photocopies, take 5 photocopies of the marriage certificate. So it'll show, hey, this is, where we got married, how we got married. You're just photocopy. It's just a photocopy. So 5 photocopies of the birth certificate of both husband and wife. So in this, I actually sent in my original as well as the photocopies, and my wife's original birth certificate is actually still with me in my documents folder, which I sent in with the photocopies of hers. However, they're saying that you only need 5 photocopies of the birth certificate of both the husband and the wife. So that means that you should just be able to request her to send you like a picture of it, a fax, a scan, to be able to have that held accountable. All right, number 6 on the website, 5 photocopies of valid passport. Now this is, this might be ridiculous, but you need both sides. Like when you pull out a passport and it's a photo of a passport, you can't just have the picture of, like one side. So this is one side of a passport. You have to have both the information page and the signature page. So on a passport, they are not just asking to see this initial page that says, hey, my name is, this is my passport information. They want to see both of these pages. So photocopy both pages together. This is one of their, little things that they want, both copies together. This is because they have to be able to validate this signature. This signature must be the same signature on that marriage certificate. It must be the same signature on the report of marriage. They are looking for that signature, and it's the same thing for her wife, for the wife. So her signature on her passport must match the signature on the RON. It must match. Don't send it in if it doesn't match. Okay. So 5 photocopies, and then it says together with any of the following. It says all these different things. They're basically trying to prove, like, how did you meet? How did you get in person to do this marriage? And so here's what you do. Because you are a savvy person and you got married online and you've never met your wife in person before, because that's what I did, you're going to create an affidavit. Now, an affidavit is not a difficult thing. It is just, an affidavit is a statement of legal truth. So, in my case, I found a pre-fillable affidavit template online, and the top of it says, Affidavit of Colin Schneide. And then it says, State of Arizona, County of Maricopa on the left-hand side, and then it says, the undersigned, Colin Schneide, being duly affirmed, hereby deposes and says, and you're going to say these things. I am married to wife. Our marriage was performed by a county clerk designee in Lehi, Utah, USA, and the marriage certificate is approved by the clerk of the court and apostilled as a true legal document. 3. The county clerk designee performing the marriage held the ceremony by communique through an app called WebWed Mobile. According to webwedmobile.com/legal, quote, our ceremonies are performed by our technology communique via our app WebWed Mobile, end quote. And, quote, the service we provide is not considered in proxy marriage, end quote. 4. Communique, according to the webwedmobile.com/legal, is, quote, a form of technology that amalgamates WebRTC and open source intelligence to provide cyber jurisdictions, thus creating an optical indirect human experience that brings you into our jurisdiction/environment, end quote. Therefore, legally, the marriage was performed within the jurisdiction of Lehi, Utah, USA. 5. Further information on the legality and process in which the marriage was performed can be found at webwedmobile.com/legal. And 6. My wife, name here, does not have a U.S. visa and accordingly did not need a U.S. visa to get married in the U.S. for the reason stated in number 4, she was legally brought into the jurisdiction of Lehi, Utah through the communique. Dated, gonna date it for when you're signing it. You're gonna sign it, put a notary right here, and this is a notary statement that the notary has to sign. I, the undersigned notary public, do hereby affirm that Colin Schneide personally appeared before me on the date he signed and signed the above affidavit as his free and voluntary act and deed. So you just leave that date blank so you can fill it in. The notary signs, the notary stamps. This is key. There are 3 things in here that are shown to that are given to the civil registry at San Francisco that they need. 1, they have to know how you got married, who you're married to. 2, they have to know how you did it, like how the marriage was actually performed and what kind of marriage it is, because there's a difference between a proxy marriage and an in-person marriage. And 3, they have to know that she doesn't have a U.S. visa. Those 3 things were covered in those 6 points that I laid out into this affidavit and signed. All right. Now, for me, I had an additional requirement. There's several additional requirements on here for divorced, annulled, legally separated Filipino spouses, widowed Filipino spouses, divorced, annulled, legally separated foreign spouses, widowed foreign spouses. For me, I had to go through the process for the divorcee. You can read it on there. It's very straightforward. I had to just simply get my divorce agreement and send them the original and certified true copies of the divorce decree. So you're going to have different requirements. You may not be divorced like I am. I hope you're not. God bless your heart. All right, the processing fee. So I went to the Los Angeles consulate and they wouldn't even take an international money order. I would recommend getting a cashier's check. Go to your bank, pay the $10 for it, get a cashier's check for $25 made payable to the Philippine Consulate General. So don't do a money order, don't do a regular personal check, do a cashier's check. This is the most secure form of check. It is almost guaranteed anywhere that you go. Do not do anything else. Do the cashier's check. Everything else at your own, at your own risk. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you legal advice. This is my personal opinion on how you should do it. This is how I did it personally. All right. So if you wish to send in your application by mail, which I'm assuming you're not going to drive up to the San Francisco consulate. So you include 1 cover letter, so again, that's the exact same information, all the requirements where you have everything notarized, and the SASE. So the SASE is going to be, I would recommend doing it through UPS, and they can do this process known as a return envelope. You put your address in the sender, and you put it in the return, so that you are receiving documents basically from yourself, and you pay for overnight for the San Francisco consulate to receive it. You pay for overnight to have them send it back to you. It's going to cost you like $130 to $150 to do that every single time you do any documents both ways, but it is worth it. So once you send that over to the Philippine Consulate General, you can reach out to them if you have a qualified emergency to the emergency phone line. This is the only phone line that I could get anybody to answer the phone on. And once I was able to get somebody to answer the phone for my qualified emergency, I was able to have them reach out to the Civil Registry Department, and the Civil Registry Department took notice of my package and was able to help me through the things that I had done wrong in the first place, get them fixed, and send them back to her and get them approved. My report of marriage is stamped and registered as of May 26th. So that means from the time between April 21st, when I received the apostille marriage certificate, it took me a little over a month to do this with making mistakes. And the most difficult mistake was not having notarized the ROM properly. I had to go through the entire process of having it notarized again, wasting hundreds of dollars on digital notaries, trying to sign it that way. Do not do a digital notary. Okay, so once you go through that entire rigmarole, you have your report of marriage. You'll get 2 copies of your report of marriage. I recommend keeping the copy that has this little note on the top and the receipt on the side, because this is the most official looking one that you're going to get, and it is the one that I've used for all of my processing. So now we're going to go over to the requirements for the Los Angeles consulate. And in this entire process, there are only 3 people that you have to please. There's really only 3, well, maybe 4. So there's really only 3 or 4 people you have to please. You have to please the officer that handles the civil registry over at the San Francisco consulate, the visa officer that handles visas over at the Los Angeles consulate, the check-in counter at the airline, and the immigration officer after you arrive in the Philippines. The hardest one is going to be the next one, which is the visa officer in Los Angeles. And I'm going to tell you, this lady does not play around. She wants everything exactly the way she wants it, at the right way that she wants it, at the right time that she wants it. You need to make sure that you pay attention to this process. So again, in sending everything in, use UPS, do not use FedEx. They put it clearly on their website, philippineconsulateLA.org. Requirements for non-immigrant visa, foreign spouse of a foreign Filipino national. Requirements must be submitted by mail or courier service. Do not use FedEx. Again, do not use FedEx. Use UPS. So it says, per BI regulation, it must be a marriage defined by Philippine law. Now, Philippine law does not recognize online marriages. And you might say to yourself, oh no, that's a bad thing. And maybe it could be, except for the fact that the Philippines is party to what's known as the Hague Convention. And the Hague Convention requires the Philippines to accept and acknowledge documents from foreign countries if they are apostilled with an apostille. That's what the Hague Convention is. It is the acceptance, the universal acceptance of documents from foreign countries. This is why Filipinos are able to get divorced if, like, for instance, the foreign national starts the process of the divorce, because it's a foreign recognized document. Now, I'm not advocating for your divorce here. I'm advocating for you to get married. So, apostille. This is what allows you to be legal according to the Philippine Family Code, because the Philippine Family Code is a party to the Hague Convention. I know that we're being a little bit repetitive here, but I just can't tell you how many times that I keep getting asked the same questions. All right. Original and photocopy of the passport with a validity that must extend at least 6 months beyond the length of proposed stay in the Philippines. You must have a passport that has at least 6 months. I would recommend having a lot more than that on it, because you don't know how they're going to play games with your process. You have to have, again, when you have a photocopy of your passport, it must be both sides, bottom, top. Signature block. This is the key right here. They must see the signature block along with your name so they can validate your documents. Again, anything you sign, everything you sign everything with the signature on your passport. It must match this signature. All right. 1 2x2 photograph taken within the last 6 months. This is really easy. You can go to any Walgreens, any CVS. You can go to all kinds of different places at the consulate generals themselves. There was a place in the basement that took pictures at the Los Angeles consulate. There was a place up on the 5th floor that took pictures. 2x2 photographs for the Philippine consulate if you need it. It's not a difficult thing to get a hold of. You're going to get a form that looks like this. And you're going to put that photo right up here in the right-hand corner. Just a little bit of tape, stick it right on there. And this form is FA Form 2-A, and it is application for non-immigrant visa to the Philippines. You can find this on the Los Angeles consulate website, or you can show up in person. However, the Consulate General stops accepting in-person appointments as of August 9th right now, so keep that in mind. You're not going to fill out the top block. Don't fill out the top block. Don't write on the top block. Don't write on it. Don't do it. You're going to put your surname, your last name, your first name, which is, Colin, your civil status. You're already married. If you have an ROM in your hand, you are married. If you have an apostille in your hand, you are married. And you need to do these things in order. It is very important you do these things in order. They will check the dates. They will check the dates on your ROM to make sure that the things you do for your visa are after You have received your ROM. You cannot do these things out of order. They will not let you. Do not do these things out of order. Do not try to do them out of order. Do them in order. All right, so for me, my occupation as of this moment right now, I would put student. I'm a full-time master's degree student in school, so I'd put the school as my employer, the address of the school, my birth date, my place of birth, I'm a male, my current address, which for me, I was in a hotel at the moment, it was an emergency, and my phone number, the name of my spouse, so Riva Clarice Tagoon, her address, a reference in the Philippines. My dad lives in the Philippines. He's an American with a permanent resident card, so I put him as my reference in the Philippines. The purpose of visit is pleasure. This is not a business trip. You are not going over there on business. You don't have a $75,000 investment in any business. You're going on pleasure. So you don't have to put any next port of destination. Financial means of support and proof. They are going to look for this. You're going to need to be able to give them something. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's only one thing that visa officer wants, and it is cash. She wants you to have cash in your bank account. Now, we'll talk about that in a bit. For me, because I'm going to school, I put down the US GI Bill. However, when I went to my interview with her, she didn't accept that. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. The length of intended stay, the visa officer let me know that I was originally intending to stay until January 8th. She said, that's too long. The immigration is looking for you to actually stay only within the first 59 days. You need to have a return ticket within the first 59 days. Now, do you have to take the ticket? I mean, if you want to go back, sure. But you can extend when you get here. Don't worry about it. If you have to get a ticket, just get a ticket for return. So, length of stay for me, it's August 5th through September 22nd, 2021. My passport information is the next few blocks, expiry date. They show you how to put these dates, put the dates on there that they want, the way they want you to put them. Month, / day, / year. Put them that way. Please just don't make this hard. There's nobody accompanying you to the Philippines, NA, and have you ever been convicted of a crime? I hope you can honestly put no. So, all right. Proof of financial capacity. So we are on, back up a little bit. We're still on the requirements page again, Philippine Consulate, la.org/foreign-spouse-of-a-filipino-national. So, next requirement, a photocopy of the applicant's proof of round-trip airline booking. You do not have to have a paid reservation. Now, in my case, I had a paid reservation. It was an emergency. However, in your case, you do not need to have a paid reservation. Now, it helped to prove that I was in an emergency type case. However, I would not recommend that. I had a ticket through Philippine Airlines before. It literally took me 9 months to get the refund for that ticket. If you buy a ticket with Philippine Airlines and you can't make that ticket, you may not see that money for a good portion of the next year. Keep that in mind. And these tickets are expensive. So, you just go to Google Maps, or you go to Google Flights, you look up what flights are available, and then just screenshot the expected flights that you would like to take. And once you get the visa, these can change. You can change these flights after you get the visa. I changed my flight to September 22nd after I got the visa, because my original flight was January 8th, and they said, no, that's too long. But I changed it after I got the visa. They allowed me to get the visa with that date. Okay, proof of financial capacity. So, in my case, I printed out credit card statements, because they put this on there. They put latest printout of credit card accounts, latest printout of bank statements, ownership of real properties, other documents showing the applicant's capacity to financially support him or herself during his or her stay in the Philippines. You'll need more than one type of proof. Now, in the actual interview, by going through this and learning by trial and error, I brought credit card statements, I brought my retirement account, I brought my GI Bill stuff, I brought disability stuff, because in America, if you have GI disability, if you have disability through the VA, that's a form of income. Sort of. Anyway, and bank statements. These all have to be the most up-to-date documents. Like, if if you get sent back for any corrections, like if they send it back to you and say, hey, we need such and such updated, update everything. Update to the newest bank statements, update to the newest card statements, whatever you present to them, update it to the newest thing so that they can't come back and say that something else is out of date or expired at this point. Because that happened to me, and I had to go and redo about half my package the final time that I did it, because they were asking me for all these documents that had gone out of date in the process of doing this entire package, waiting for months. So, the printout of final financial capacity, I brought card statements, credit cards, I brought my bank statement, and the newest one, I brought my 401k, I brought my GI Bill stuff, and at the end of the day, the only thing that the visa officer would actually accept was the bank statement. She said, this is the only thing that I'm actually going to accept from you as a source of income for you to be able to provide for yourself, and she will scrutinize that thing. So you need to, if you have like, let's give an example. If you have $10,000 in the bank, and you spent $8,000 in your last statement, and you've got $10,000 remaining, the visa officer is going to want to know why. And you might want to include a statement that says why you spent so much money. And you might want to say, well, travel expenses. And you can include a copy of where your bank account balance is right now. You have to justify that you can financially provide for yourself. I showed her money in the retirement account. She said that doesn't count. I showed her passive income coming in. She said that doesn't count. I had to justify that I had the ability to financially provide and support myself while I'm in the Philippines. And if you feel there's any doubt, I would include a statement. You can notarize it. It doesn't need to be super formal, but just a written statement signed that says, this is how I'm able to provide for myself, so that you can erase any doubts, because you have to persuade this lady. You have to persuade her that you can provide for yourself. And a wife, by the way. So again, I included a card statement, a bank account statement. She wanted to see my actual bank balance at that very moment, my retirement savings, and passive income. I included all of those. Original and photocopy of proof of marriage. So this is where you bring the ROM and you bring the apostille marriage certificate. They need to see both of those, especially the ROM. Letter request by the Filipino spouse addressed to the consulate with copy of valid identification card by the Philippine government. So, this was quite fun. This was really difficult to get a hold of, and this almost undid my entire package because I did not take the time to do this properly, and I had to rush at the last second. So this is that letter right here. And I had to go through hell to get this letter. So it's not difficult. From my wife, it just says, Dear Visa Section of Los Angeles Consulate, August 3rd, 2021, which is the day she signed it. Good day, my name is Reba Cleary's Casas Tagun. I married Colin Schneide of Phoenix, Arizona, April 16th. I love him very much, looking forward to his arrival in the Philippines. My parents gave their consent for us to marriage, etc. You can include some personal information of some of your background. But at the end of the day, it needs to say, please grant Colin Schneide the visa that we may have our church, that we may, be together in the Philippines, or something to that effect that says, hi, my name is, and I'm looking to personally invite this person into my place. One moment. Hi, thank you. All right, you're coming with me through just normal parts of life right now in Cebu. Okay, that was dinner. So, in this letter request right here, you have to specifically say that she is requesting for you to come to the Philippines, that she wants you to come to the Philippines. Now, this isn't very difficult. She just needs to sign it, and she needs to notarize it. On this, there is a notary signature from an attorney, because attorneys are notaries in the Philippines. But the problem was that I didn't go through the work of getting this ahead of time, so I woke my wife and a lawyer up at 3 a.m. in the morning on the day of my appointment at the consulate, because the consulate gave me the end of day to get my documents together to consider my package, and had them meet traveling across an island. Had to pay for that too, it was expensive, to get this notarized and then sent to me. So what this shows is that this document doesn't need to be an original, it can be a copy. I would get the original if you have the forethought to think about doing this ahead of time, which if you're going to do the original, make sure that you get it after the report of marriage is signed. Do everything in order. But you can have a copy of this. A copy of this is just fine. And this is, again, her letter inviting you to come to the Philippines, signed, notarized. All right, now this is another part of where things get really fun. So when it says with a copy of valid identification card by the Philippine government, for her it was a passport. This notary says Philippine passport number issued on such and such date, where it was issued. That's not the problem. This is where it gets really fun. Documentary proof that the Filipino spouse is in the Philippines, such as a barangay or municipal certification, certificate of employment, notarized affidavit of appearance with a photo of the spouse holding a current newspaper. Now, this lady at the visa section wanted nothing more than that newspaper. And I gotta tell you, we had to find the newspaper, the Bohol Chronicle, at 6 a.m., an hour before the consulate closed from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., and get a hold of her holding a picture of that newspaper. And so she shows up in my package holding a newspaper showing, and I'm going to tell you, you need to make sure the date is clearly seen. If the date is not incredibly visual, like you can see it very clearly, you know, you done goofed. This is the picture of her holding the newspaper. You need to be able to clearly see the date. It must be the most current date that you can get. It just needs to be a picture of her. And again, because you're going to send this in overnight, you're going to send it overnight. It's going to be pretty current for the visa section. Now, that was in addition to the barangay certificate that we got a hold of. So it says, documentary proof the Philippine spouse is in the Philippines, such as barangay or municipal certification, and then all the other stuff, with a photo of the spouse holding a current newspaper. So don't think to yourself, oh, that's only an option. That is a requirement on top of the proof that the Philippine spouse is in the Philippines. So I have a original barangay certificate of my wife in the Philippines, and it's it's also a pretty simple document. There's a lot of documents that I've been doing this process for just too long, it seems. But technical difficulties, just one moment. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Barangay certificates. See, I tried to be prepared for you guys in coming into this explanation, because I know that a lot of you guys have a lot of questions, and that's really fair, because I had a lot of questions going into this process that I had to ask the consulates, and they're not exactly the most responsive kind of people. Getting a hold of the consulate is very difficult. So while I'm looking for this, I'll just explain to you that calling the consulate was a very difficult process. I mean, I literally called the consulate maybe 100 times in a day once, just to try and get a hold of them, to be able to talk with them about this package. And then they would give me something to go fix, and then I would go through the entire process again of trying to get a hold of them again, just so that I could ask them more questions, and then I would need to get something else fixed, and on we go. I gotta tell you, from being in the Philippine consulate, because I was in the actual Los Angeles consulate all day on the 2nd of August and for part of the day on the 3rd of August, those ladies are crazy busy. I mean, like, that consulate is just packed with people. I showed up at 8:45 in the morning for a 9 a.m. appointment, and I was already behind a line of 26 Filipinos for 20 slots available for non-appointments, and 6 of them had already gotten turned away because they had shown up too late to be able to come in and get it taken care of. Anyway, I can't seem for the life of me to find this beautiful barangay certificate, but suffice to say, you're going to need a barangay certificate. So make sure you get yourself a barangay certificate, and just understand that they are giving preferential treatment to certain cases based on whether it's considered an emergency or not, because there are so many people that are going through these documentary processes that, you know, they want to see that you have a legitimate case, I guess. They give them a good reason to help you out, to do your processes quickly. And I'll explain what my reasoning was for them. So I had attempted to go to the island of Malay, the Maldives, to meet my wife to avail of balik bayan. We're giving up on that barangay certificate. And I went to that island, and my wife, I had thought that maybe I could bring my wife and her brother to Manila to fly into Malay to be able to come visit me. But when they got up there, even though I gave her brother all of the money for the tickets, so we wouldn't have to do a certificate of undertaking and financial support, which is its own nightmare, they still required of him proof that he had employment. Because what they think is that if a Filipino leaves, that they're going to abscond the country and are not going to come back. So the immigration officer over there has to be satisfied that the Filipino is going to come back. The Philippines also has a very high human trafficking rate, so you have to go through the process of proving to the immigration officer that your wife is not going to become a victim of human trafficking. And how hard do you think that's going to be when she's never met this man before in her life? She's got no visas to travel internationally, and she wants to leave the country. They're very skeptical of this, and so you're going to have a hard time proving that case unless they have a job and a certificate of employment that, and even a letter from that employer showing that they're going to be coming back to that job. So again, get a barangay or municipal certificate. Your Philippine spouse should know about that. You just go to your local government unit. It's got a little seal of the local government unit on there. It's signed. Your Philippine spouse is able to get a hold of it. So you're not traveling with your Philippine spouse, and then again, your SASE. So UPS SASE, it must be UPS. You must give them a cashier's check. It's a cashier's check for $30. Cashier's check. Remember, they would not accept an international money order, which even though it says they would accept it on your cashier's check, because what they wanted when I was there was in-person cash, and thankfully I had cash on me. So once you get through all of that and you get your visa issued, you'll get a visa issued by the consulate that has this new beautiful little statement on it, and it says EED not required per IATF resolution No. 128S.2021. It's going to be a single entry visa, 9A visa. Now, this right here will allow you to get onto the airline. Now, the things you're going to have to do to get onto the airline once you have that are you're going to have to get your COVID test. So I got my COVID test within 48 hours. The LAX airport has COVID testing options that return your test in as little as an hour, which is $250, very expensive, but it works. I had a round-trip airline itinerary, but my ticket there was through Philippine Airlines, which was $2,500, and my return ticket was like $600 or something from United, which I can just change at a later date or get flight credit for. There were very few options for PAL. The next ones up were business class at like $4,700, incredibly expensive. Your baggage allowance is 50 pounds per bag. You bring your stuff with you. They give you face shields there. So I brought a face shield with me thinking that they might not have it, but they provided the face shield there. When I got to the check-in counter, they required my visa with passport, the ROM, and the apostille marriage certificate. Those were the three things that they had to see in order to prove that I met the IATF recommendations for the resolution that allowed me to enter as a foreign spouse of a Philippine national. Once they called into Manila, because they had literally never done this process before, I would wager that I was the very first person to actually go through this process at LAX with this new annotation on the visa, because they had no idea about this. They had to call into Manila and verify with the staff in Manila that this was actually legit. And then they finally let me through. Once you get through the boarding process, you get to the plane. As soon as they issue a ticket, you're golden. You get on that plane, you just enjoy the trip over to the Philippines. The next gatekeeper doesn't come until you get into the Philippines itself, which right now you cannot go to Manila. Manila is not accepting international flights. So I had a flight into Manila at first, but it actually got rebooked into Cebu because Manila is, again, not allowing people. Now, part of what you need to do in this whole process is you need to actually book and pay for your hotel reservations. And I apologize, the airline check-in counter needs your hotel reservations. You must show them your hotel reservations 10 days at an approved quarantine facility. You can go onto Philippine Airlines website, and Philippine Airlines website will have a list of the approved quarantine hotels in both Manila and in Cebu. And you can look these lists up on their website, Philippine Airlines, and they will show you what those hotels are. What I did is I went on to Expedia.com and I took that list and I compared it to Expedia.com, and I just looked through the cheapest hotels on Expedia.com till I found one that matched the list of quarantine hotels on the for Cebu. And for Manila, I was gonna stay at the Fortune Hotel. I'll give you these were the cheapest ones that I was able to find for your knowledge. So I'll give you these so that you can book the same ones if you want. Best Fortune Hotel, 10 days. It has to be, duration of stay, it has to be 10 nights. 10 nights. Best Fortune Hotel is the one I had booked in Manila. And the one I'm currently at in Cebu is Oyo Hotel, La Maria and Pension Tourist Inn. So again, Oyo Hotel, La Maria and Pension Tourist Inn. These were really cheap. Both of them were under $250 or just about $250 for all 10 nights. Breakfast is like food is like $10 a day, all day here. But you have to have that paid in advance. And Expedia will allow you to book refundable tickets, refundable rooms in some cases, which you can cancel if you need be up to a few days before the hotel reservation is set to kick in. So if things for some reason don't work out, you can cancel them pretty close up to the date. And I would recommend also getting refundable tickets for that exact same reason, because of how crazy things are. And by the way, use a credit card when you buy your airline tickets. If you use a credit card when you buy your airline tickets, you will get your refunds back so much quicker. It's just, the system is just set up that way. Use a credit card if you have access to it. A debit card will take a lot longer for you to get a refund, and credit cards offer protections for refunds. So use a credit card. Use a credit card, a major credit card. Okay, so hotel reservation, 10 days. This is something that is gonna come up over and over again. It's gonna need to be seen through the immigration process in Cebu. So once you get off the airline, they sit you down as an aircraft, they sit everybody down in a room and they explain all the requirements for people. They take the unvaccinated out first to be processed, then the partially vaccinated, then the fully vaccinated based on your country. You know, sorry to break it to you, but if you're from the United States, it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. You could be vaccinated, you know, for everything under the sun, and you are still going to have a 10-day quarantine, because the U.S. right now is not on the IATF resolution for low-risk countries. So again, it doesn't matter for that right now if you're vaccinated or not. So you go over to the processing counters, you put your stuff through security as normal, and then you show up at the immigration officer. The immigration officer asks for the exact same things as the check-in counter: passport, visa, ROM, apostille marriage certificate. You're also going to, in this process, need to get a barcode for arriving in Cebu. They give you all these things actually upon check-in, so they explain to you need to sign up for the barcode upon check-in. They give you a health declaration, an arrival form. All of these things are given to you at the airport. But you have to sign up for them there. It's best to sign up for the Cebu barcode in advance. If you go to Philippine Airlines website again, you can look for this Mactan arrival document. You literally just go to the website for the Mactan airport and you give your information and you register ahead of time saying that you're about to arrive. So one of the things that I saw from one of the other guys in the Philippines help group is I took all of my documents that I had compiled together and I sent them to an email address. And I don't know if this really helped me in advance or not, because nothing ever came of this to my knowledge. But I sent an email to biportoperationsdiv@gmail.com, and I said, please find attached my apostille marriage certificate, the ROM from the Consulate General, the approved visa, the pictures of everything, the departing flight info, the return flight info, pictures of the reservations, the registration barcode for Cebu arrival assigned between 2 to 5 days before arrival, the hotel reservation for 10 days in the approved Cebu hotel, my unexpired passport. I signed up for Trace, my Trace ID that I attached, and my negative PCR RT-PCR COVID test administered within 48 hours of flight departure. I attached all of these documents to show them that I had done this process. Again, you're going to have to go through all of those things that I just showed you as documents for getting into the Philippines. So I showed up at immigration. They want to make sure that I have my hotel reservation, I've got this barcode, I've got the forms I filled out while I was on the aircraft about to arrive into Cebu. They asked me how long I was staying. My stay was leaving on the 22nd of September, which was within the 59 days, so they didn't have to ask about expired, whether my visa was going to expire or not. And after I gave them all the satisfactory answers that they want, and you got to stare at them at this webcam just straightforward while you're explaining this, she let me go. And I walked downstairs. The staff COVID tested me right then and there. It was free of charge. They don't charge you for that COVID test. You pick up your bags and then you wait until the Department of Tourism, which is also there, and the military, which is checking bags. Don't try and bring in drugs, kids. Calls your hotel, and your hotel comes and picks you up. And at that point, you're on your own again. There is no currency exchange at Cebu Airport. There's probably not going to be any at Manila. Nothing is even open at Cebu Airport. Everything you're going to bring with you. If you want cash, you better get it at the airport that you are going to show up at, or that you're going to leave out of, because you're not getting it anywhere else. And once you're in the hotel, you're here. You're stuck. You're in this hotel for 10 days. On the 7th day, I will go and do another COVID test. And then after 10 days, they will release me, and I will be able to go to the island of Bohol, pending those regulations whenever that island opens up, to actually be with my wife. So, as you can see, this is a complicated process, just to go over some of these expenses. And remember, I had an emergency case. I literally traveled all the way around the world. I went from the United States to Qatar to Maldives. And then when that failed, I went through Singapore, back to Los Angeles, stayed in a hotel for like 5 or 6 days, had an in-person consulate appointment where they told me all these documents I needed to fix by the end of the day, woke my wife up at 3 in the morning with a lawyer to fix documents, send them back over to me, have them by 7 minutes before the end of the day, where the consulate heavily scrutinized my documents, and then finally gave me a visa and allowed me to get on a flight 3 days later on August 5th. And not to mention all of the flight changes that kept happening, which, the PAL flight changed, and I had multiple flights that were supposed to go through Singapore change. And you have to make sure you don't travel. If you're going to do any traveling, don't be traveling through countries that are blocked by the IATF resolutions. They won't let you in if you have traveled through those countries, so be aware of that. You have to be honest in your explanations of places that you've been. Just be honest with immigration. If you're honest with them, you've got nothing to worry about. They will let you through. You just need to know what you're talking about and know what you're doing. So I hope that you can find your own compelling case of why you should be with your wife, and you can demonstrate how important that is. again, if you can think about the cost of what it took for me to get to Malay and what it would have cost for me to bring my wife and her brother to Malay, and by the way, we did get refundable tickets, that alone would have cost around $10,000 for that entire trip. And thankfully we're getting a refund of like almost $7,000 of tickets for that, which has yet to come in. But it's not a cheap process. You need to be ready for the effort. You have to prove to these people that your case is worthy of the attention. It is really what you have to prove to them, that you have a compelling case to get the attention you need to get this process quickly. You're going to wait like everybody else for however long, including whenever the lockdowns come. And I don't think that they are going to process visas during the time that lockdowns are in effect. And right now, unfortunately, COVID cases are spiking in both the US and the Philippines. And really nobody knows how much longer they'll stay open for now. Local government units have already been locking down. The island of Bohol is completely locked down. I can't get to Bohol. Even after my quarantine is done, I have to wait at least another 4 days until the island of Bohol opens up. So I'm just going to wait in Cebu, and I don't even know if my wife can leave Bohol to come to Cebu to see me. So you have to be ready to be flexible with this process too. But ultimately, I married my wife, and I had to prove that she meant a lot. She's precious to me, because guys, your wives are thinking like, well, I've seen comments where the girls are like, well, he's just happy to be on his fishing trip and go do his own thing. And guys are thinking like, well, yeah, there's nothing else that I can do. But here's the thing, guys, it's like, if you marry the girl, if you go through all of this, if you go through with marrying her and promising that you're going to be with her, you need to put in the effort to do everything you can to be with her, because really that's what she deserves as your wife. That's what she deserves as the most precious and important human being to you. You need to put in the time and effort, and when you prove that to the visa staff, when you prove that to the consulate staff, they will help you go through this process quicker. So again, this has been an exhaustive explanation of everything that I went through, but I'm sure there are still more questions that people are going to have. There are still more details that I could share, still more costs to be analyzed. If you're going to look at this whole example of everything I did without any of the mistakes, it would cost, let's see, $899 for the marriage certificate. If you're able to find, maybe, like, I've heard there's rumors like you can get it through the Utah County website for like $100. Let's say $100 there. $50 for the apostille. $100 for the overnight back and forth. So that's like $250 right there. Then another $150 for the back and forth with the San Francisco consulate. That's $400. Plus the cost to get the documents notarized in the Philippines and sent to you. It's going to be another, let's say $100. That's $600. You're going to look at the cost of overnight back and forth to the Los Angeles consulate, which is going to be another $150. So that's $750. Plus whatever it costs for any other notary that you may have to do after the ROM from the Philippines. So let's say $800 right there. At the Los Angeles consulate, the fees for both consulates are another, $50. So let's say $900, including any incidentals. You get your visa, you buy your ticket. Ticket costs $2,500 to go to the Philippines, plus another $600 for the return. That's $31 plus $9. That's $4,000. The hotel reservation in Cebu costs $250. So that's $4,250. Plus another $10 to eat every day. That's $4,350. And then there's going to be the continuing flight from here to my next island, and whatever costs to continue to quarantine there and eat. So at the very minimum, this has cost around $4,500 to go through this process. I rounded up to a cool $5,000, and that's without making any mistakes. And I made a lot of mistakes. So this is to say, count the cost and be ready for the amount of work and for the amount of finances that it's going to have to go in this. And on top of that, remember, you need to still present the financial capacity to provide for yourself and for your wife in addition to the money that you're spending. So be ready for that. If you have any more questions, Feel free to reach out to me on Facebook in the group Let Families Be Together Philippines, Colin Schneide, or reach out in the comments section below. Don't forget to press the subscribe button, and I will see you later.